Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Cricket Unfiltered. I'm Menners, and I'm coming to you live after Australia opened their T20 World Cup campaign with a 39-run victory over Oman. So if you're tuning into Cricket Unfiltered and you want to know what's happening with the T20 World Cup, as I've said in the weekly shows, I'm going to be doing an episode after every Australian game in the T20 World Cup. Some will be solo, some I'll be joined by guests. I get a lot of great feedback from the solo episode, so I'm definitely going to jump on and react to some of these games on my own. But then also there'll be regular weekly discussions with more longer chats around the World Cup. I've done 2 this week already, so if you haven't listened to them, go back. I had Chris Hockman, who's a sports writer from San Antonio. He's also a long-time listener of the show and is originally from the Central Coast. He gives us what it's like in America with the World Cup being there. He gives us that perspective. And then I caught up with Damien Watson last night, and we sort of went through all the issues with the Australian team that we think could come up during this World Cup. So a lot of great stuff, but I'm here to review Australia's first game. And this episode is brought to you by NordVPN. And if you want to get a great deal on a VPN service, head to the link in the episode notes. That's nordvpn.com/cricket unfiltered. You get a 30-day money back guarantee, and you get a terrific saving if you sign up for 2 years. And with so much cricket on all the time, if you travel around a bit, having a VPN makes it really easy to keep up with all types of cricket. Some of it's geo-blocked on different apps, and a VPN will certainly help you navigate that. So head to the link in the show notes, nordvpn.com/cricket unfiltered. And I'd like to thank them for supporting the podcast. All right, let's get into it. First game, Kensington Oval in Barbados. The storied clash between Australia and Oman in World Cups. It's normally in soccer World Cups, but today we got it in a cricket World Cup. And Oman won the toss and they elected to bowl. Australia named what I thought was a predictable team. So the top 6 batting order is what was being thrown around. Marcus Stoinis got the nod as the all-rounder ahead of Cameron Green. And then the big call, though, was Nathan Ellis was picked ahead of Pat Cummins. And I guess we'll know more as we get into the England game, or maybe we won't, because Stark did pull up a limp in this game. We'll talk about that later. But I guess, were they thinking this was their first choice team? This was their first choice attack? Or was this just a case of already starting to rotate the fast bowlers before they get to the business end of the tournament? We might not know now because Stark's going to be injured, but certainly they left Cummins out, picked Ellis. And so it's an indicator that, they're thinking, pretty seriously about having Ellis in that 11 come the business end of the tournament. So Australia was sent into bat, and Head hit his first ball of the tournament for 4. We've certainly seen him do that a lot in the IPL, just come out swinging, and he did that. But pretty early on, you could see that the pitch just wasn't coming onto the bat. It wasn't sort of a terrible wicket like we've seen in Long Island in the American leg of the tournament, but this was a slow, low wicket with a bit of uneven bounce, a bit of turn there, and you could see the Oman bowlers were getting a lot of early movement. They were getting a bit of sort of swing as well, because they were bowling that slower pace. They were getting the ball to move a bit, and they were getting it to move off the pitch. And then Travis Head was caught at mid-off in the 3rd over, and he was gone for 12 off just 10 deliveries, caught by Khalid Karl and Bilal Khan took the wicket. So that had Australia 1 for 19 after 2.4 overs. And it was pretty slow going in the power play. Mitch Marsh and David Warner really got the head down. And after the 6 overs, Australia was 1 for 37, going at just above a run a ball. But the conditions were certainly favouring the bowlers, and you could see, Australia having to really work hard. And then the game had an exciting period. In the 9th over, Mitch Marsh and Glenn Maxwell were dismissed in consecutive deliveries off Mehran Khan. Mitch Marsh, he was caught at long on trying to hit a big 6, and so he was out for 14 off 21 deliveries. I mean, you think about that, him going at a strike rate of a 67 in a T20 game. That gives you an idea of how difficult the conditions were. And then Glenn Maxwell comes out, and he's had a stinker of an IPL, duck after duck after duck. In RCB's final eliminator game, he got out for a golden duck, playing a stinker of a shot, trying to hit his first ball down the ground for 6 and getting caught. So he came in with that behind him. And I think Australian fans were hoping, Glenn Maxwell with the Australian shirt on. Can we get the Glenn Maxwell that scored a 200 in the 50 over World Cup? First ball opens the face to a cover drive, and he's caught brilliantly at short cover by the Oman skipper, Akib. It continues a horror run for Maxwell. He was out first ball. Mehran was on a hat trick. Australia were 50 for 3. Think about that. 50 for 3 against Oman in the 9th over, just going along at a snail's pace. But then we saw a heroic and terrific partnership between Warner and Stoinis, and they saved Australia's blushes, and they got us to a good score, because after 10 overs, Australia was 3 for 56. But as is, normal for Stoinis, he does like to play himself in, and he said, I think after the game when he was interviewed, that, when he went out there, he just wanted to hit the ball hard but along the ground. And, not a lot of T20 cricket gives you the time to play yourself but on these pitches, you kind of do. It actually does pay to have a look at the conditions if you have to get used to the pace of the pitch. So Australia 3 for 56 after 10 overs, and there was 30 deliveries between Australia hitting boundaries. Think about that. 30 to 5 overs with no boundaries for Australia against Oman. Then Australia hit a couple in a row, and they started to get going. Stoinis really started to get going. Warner was picking up the pace, but all along he was just sort of anchoring the innings. But then the 15th over was where Australia's innings changed. And Stoinis tried to hit a 2 off the first ball, then he hit ones over long off. Ayar Khan is going back, and takes the catch, but then goes over the boundary and takes it for 6. Stoinis was on 11 there. He ends up hitting 3 more sixes after that in the over and takes 26 off the 15th over. And that was really when the game changed. Stoinis rocketed to 50 off just 27 deliveries after a pretty slow start. And Warner brought up his 50 not long after, 53 off 46. So those two put on 102. They took the score from 3 for 50 to 4 for 152. And Warner was out off the second last ball of the 19th over. And I got to say that the cameras did pick up something amusing. Warner didn't look happy to be out. I think he really wanted to hit a few more boundaries before he got out. But then he walked up the wrong dressing room stairs. And I think the the Oman players had to tell him to go to the other dressing room, but the ICC cameras got him going up the stairs to the wrong dressing room, having to turn around and go to the right dressing room. So that was amusing. Everyone loves laughing at David Warner, don't they? So that brought Tim David out. He ended up hitting 9 off 4 deliveries with 2 boundaries. Stoinis was 67 not out of 36 deliveries. Sorry, David was run out of the last ball of the innings. So he was technically out. Stoinis 67 not out of 36 deliveries. Australia hit 2 for 108 off the last 10 overs, and they made 5 for 164. So after what was a horror start, shaky start, a nervous start against the Oman team that were firing, it was a terrific performance by Stoinis, and he hit 6 sixes, 2 boundaries, and as I said, this is classic Stoinis. He likes a bit of time to play himself in, and then if he does and he gets going, we can get real diamonds. But the problem with Stoinis is a lot of the time it can be rocks or diamonds. It's not a lot in between. We saw that in the IPL. He made a brilliant 124 not out for Lucknow in a superhuman chase, but in between it's more rocks than diamonds. That's all I'm saying. So best of the bowlers for Oman, Mehran Khan 2 for 38, probably the pick of the bowlers. The spinner Shakil Ahmed 4 overs, none for 28. I don't think he's a spinner, sorry. 4 overs, none for 28, just went for 7 runs per over. So that left Oman 165 to win, and was probably like, well, what did they end up with? They ended up with 125. So they only lost by 39. But I think once the score got above 140, it was always going to be tough for Oman to chase. They ended up batting pretty well, so they were all out for 125. So they were 9 for 125 after 20 overs. Pretty good effort. Marcus Stoinis took 3 for 19. Mitchell Starc, 2 for 20. Nathan Ellis, 2 for 28. And Adam Zampa, 2 for 24. I guess some of the talking points about from the Australian innings was Joel Wilson was getting a lot of love on Twitter for his performance. A couple of decisions overturned. Australia reviewed a couple of LBs. Oman referred a couple. One was missing leg stump by. Yeah, the skipper Akib was given out 5th ball of the innings, LBW, and it was missing the leg stump by about a foot. So Australia did start well, though. Starc, as he got a wicket in the first over, he got one early. So Oman were 1 for 6. Then Stoinis got a wicket in his first over. Ellis got a wicket in his first over. So all in all, it was a very solid bowling performance by Australia, but spirited by Oman. They finished strong. Aya Khan hit 36 off 30. Mehran Khan hit 27 off 16. And they finished 125 for 9. So not a disgraceful performance at all. And, Australia's fielding was good. Matthew Wade took a good catch off Stoinis off the second over. Stoinis' second wicket, diving away to his right. So I guess the big concern, though, in the innings was Starc pulled up. He went to start the 15th over, and he looked like he strained a calf or pulled a calf, and he had to go off. So that's a huge moment in the Australian team's tournament. Hopefully it's just cramp. They did say on the coverage that you could see him drinking pickle juice. So if that's the case, hopefully it was just cramp and they decided to get him off as the game had been won rather than risking him. But if it's a calf strain, that could see him out for the next couple of weeks and maybe or for the rest of the tournament. He didn't look happy in the dressing room. And again, with Australia Australia only allowed 15 players in the squad. If Starc again goes down and he potentially is out till maybe the semis and final, does Australia go, well, we'll carry him, or do you have to replace him? I, of course, think you probably have to carry him because we saw what he did in the IPL in those big games. You'd want him there. But yeah, concern early on for Australia and coming off a lot of travel to get to the West Indies. I guess this is the worry. And yeah, I got a comment there from Ishan. I'll respond to the comments at the end of the show, so put them in there. I definitely will respond to them. But yeah, so that's the big concern. Starc, as I said, best of the bowlers. Marcus Stoinis, 3 for 19. He was player of the match. Overall, though, I think the bowling was exactly what Australia wanted. Zampa looked good. 4 overs, 2 for 24. Just continues his superb form with the white ball. But you got to say, it was a good pitch for bowling, and the opposition batters weren't the strongest I've faced in the tournament. But overall, Australia, serviceable performance. Ishan Agarwal has said Australia's performance was average today. I would agree with that, but I think that's probably it's not all they want, but I think they'll be satisfied with that because of the longer nature of this tournament and the fact that you don't carry any of your performances through to the next round. So it actually doesn't matter if you beat Oman by 39 runs or 39,000 runs. When you get to the next round, it means nothing. So there is no incentive for Australia to come out of the blocks today and just be all fired up, ready for like it's a final. So I'd agree it was an average performance today. I thought that Australia was very good in the field, some great catching. Wade, good catch. David, good catch. Warner always electric patrolling the boundary. But they can afford in this format to sort of build into the tournament a bit more because of the way it's structured. Whereas, we saw in the last T20 World Cup in Australia, that New Zealand smashed Australia at the SCG, and that basically ended Australia's tournament because run rate was such a factor. So, look, run rate could be a factor if you get if you to separate teams in the first round, but I think especially with the Scotland England rain out, Australia, they'd have to really mess it up from here not to make the next round. So good start for Australia. I guess, pleasing performances. Stoinis 67, Warner 56 off 51, 6 boundaries, 1-6, summed up conditions. And, I think the fear for Australia was when they were 50 for 3. If we just keep swinging here, we could get bowled out for 100. And then, we bring Oman into the game. Whereas Warner rightly summed up, we just need to take this deep and we'll be able to capitalize at the end. So smart innings from him. I guess the knockers will say that strike rate has been a problem for Warner in the IPL, and his strike rate here is under 110, whereas Stoinis was out there and striking at almost 190, and he made a half century on the same pitch. But yeah, I give credit to Warner for anchoring innings and getting through with Stoinis because, if Warner gets out quickly and then you got David and Wade, I don't know, Australia could have been really in trouble. So that's it. Australia win the first game. Big things to watch out for. Stark pulling up with the calf strain or whatever it is. I guess we'll find out after the game in the press. And also, Pat Cummins was left out. So is that an indicator that, he's not in their first choice 11? But time will tell. So Australia plays England at 3 a.m. Sydney time on Sunday morning. Cannot wait for that. Always love playing the Poms and hopefully beating them. And I guess as well, after that rain out with Scotland, if Australia can beat England, that would make it way more difficult for them to qualify for the next round. It sort of opens the door for another team. Still, you'd back them, but I'd love Australia to get the points and really put the pressure on England. All right, and before we go, I just want to shout out Uganda got their first ever win in T20 World Cup history today. They beat Papua New Guinea by 3 wickets. What a result for Uganda. We saw Papua New Guinea push the West Indies in their first game, so they're no slouches. But Papua New Guinea were all out for 77. Uganda chased it down. They were 7 for 78. It was a famous win for Uganda. They were 5 for 26. Uganda in the chase and looking in all sorts, but then some poor Papua New Guinea catching let them back into the game. And in the end, they won by 3 wickets. So it's their first ever win in a World Cup, their first ever win versus Papua New Guinea. But it's not all bad for Papua New Guinea because Frank Mbuga, who's 43 years of age, playing in his first ever World Cup game, he bowled the most economical spell in T20 World Cup history. So I think I mentioned in the show with Chris that Anrik Nortje bowled 4 overs for 7 runs, and that was the most economical spell in World Cup T20 cricket. Well, Nortje barely held the record because Mbuga has conceded just 4 runs in 4 overs in his 4 overs against Uganda. So incredible stuff. So although Papua New Guinea, that was, I keep saying Papua New Guinea player. It was a Ugandan bowler. What am I talking about? So Mbuga for Uganda conceded 4 runs in 4 overs. Incredible. What a record for him. And yeah, what a night for Uganda. They set 3 records. They get their first win. And great start to this World Cup. Love seeing these smaller nations get the win. Finally, just before I sign off, I am loving a little battle going on Twitter between cricket and baseball fans about who have the better fielders. You can see a little bit of a tete-a-tete going on Twitter. I don't know, actually, because baseball players do have phenomenal arms, but so do some cricketers. But a different skill set, but I would say cricket fielders are better. All right, so that's it. So that's our wrap of Australia versus Oman. I'll be back to discuss Australia versus England on Sunday morning. But Australia, they get the points, but I guess everyone now will be watching Mitchell Starc's calf.